I'm here with Mark Nelson, and we're talking about seed beads today. And Mark, you have a technique to show us that we can use with lampwork beads or any large hole bead to combine with seed beads or other stringing material.
Right, right. It's a way to line that bead, line that hole, not using, so you don't have to use a mechanical method or doing it by hand.
So these little grommets just fit right into the holes.
They'll fit right into the holes, and we'll just glue them right into place.
Okay, and it looks like you're using a variety of different materials. You have this crystal and smaller size grommet and even larger ones.
Yeah, and some glass, and also a river rock that I drilled.
Okay, now why would you do this? Just to make the hole smaller, or are there other reasons as well?
A couple of reasons. One, it's going to make it look finished off and polished, you know, like a finished piece. Another thing, it's going to really protect the crystal or the rock from any kind of abrasion. And also it protects the cord, too, from abrasion.
Right.
So it's kind of protects everything.
And it looks really great, too.
It does, it does.
So how do you get started?
What we're going to do is we're just going to have to use a glue to glue these in. And for this application on a crystal bead or a glass bead, I use a glass bonding glue. And this applicator will squeeze it out in the amounts that I need.
So it's mixed just perfectly.
Right, so I don't have to measure anything. It comes out all ready to go. And then we're going to mix this. And this particular glue has a working life for about 30 minutes. But do check the instructions on your glue, because different ones will have different working times. And you want to stir that appropriately.
And I noticed you're mixing this on a piece of scrap paper, not your work surface.
That's right, because once this gets on the work surface, it's incredibly hard to get off. But the scrap paper is easy, and you can put it aside. And there again, I like to use a broken saw blade or other piece of small metal as an applicator for really tiny areas. And
yeah, now I'm noticing you're putting this glue inside and around the hole rather than on the grommet itself.
Right. One thing is that the grommets are really tiny, so they're hard to hold on to.
Right.
And it's easier for me to actually just apply it right here to the very rim of the bead. That way it's going on the inside and the outside. And just do that as neatly as you can. And then you can take your, you can take your tweezers and go ahead and put this on there. Now normally, you know, when I'm talking about gluing metal to other things, I talk about scoring the metal. Right. Or creating a kind of a abrasion or tooth to the metal. Well, these are really tiny. You're not going to be able to do that. Yeah. And what you just can do is drop this.
So how do you choose what size grommet?
That's based on the bead size hole. You just want one that's fairly close. This one happens to be, I think, a 2 millimeter or 2.5 millimeter hole, so I used the same size grommet. So the holes can be slightly smaller or larger, but not by much.
So you'd want to make sure to test that before you get ready to glue.
Exactly.
Okay, so we let this one dry, and then what happens if you have a little bit of extra glue? Is that something you can pull away with a blade? Exactly,
you can. You take a craft knife, very sharp one, fresh blade, and go in there and slice, well, after the glue is cured, slice it off and kind of just carve it right off. It'll come right off.
Okay, so why would you use a grommet instead of a bead liner?
A bead liner, that's a mechanical thing. So if I can show you on that red oval stone.
Sure, this piece right here?
Right. If you look at it, it has that angle.
To the end of the stone here.
Right. So if you do that on a mechanical machine, it's going to be very hard to do that with an even pressure, and so there'd be risk to the stone.
So by gluing this by hand, you're making sure that you're not damaging that wonderful faceting that we love so much.
Right. And remember, too, you can use this on shell or other light wood.
Love the way that you did this on stone, and it looks like you scored it here. Were you going to make a hole here, or was that for decoration?
I was going to make a hole, and I looked at it, and I'm like, that is so cool looking, I'm just going to leave it.
It is really cool. And so here you could add some dangles, and this is just going to give you a really professional finish.
Exactly.
And then on a piece like this, you were saying about using a mechanical piece, it might break the bead.
It might break the bead, right? Or if you're doing it by hand, and you had to put this on a steel block, and you were doing it by hand with a punch, it has these little nodules on there, so you might be chipping those. So this would be very hard to hold by hand to do.
Right. It would work great on a disc bead, too.
Yes.
Now here, some seed beads are just running through, so the grommet actually lines the bead and protects your seed beads, so you can just run them right through a piece like that.
Right. It's protecting everything.
Yeah, this is a great way to make those collectible charm bracelets, too, that everybody's so wild about with the metal-lined beads.
Yes, yes, indeed.
All right, and here you have some leather cord running through, and this grommet, could you make it smaller to suit if you were using smaller leather cord?
Well, it depends, because the grommets have this, if I can show you over here on these little ones, the flange is very small, okay? So there's not much metal going over that lip. So you'd have to judge it kind of carefully.
So you want to make sure that it's sized to the whole size of the bead, not to the stringing material.
Right, right. Because I mean, you have a little bit of a play on the beads, but not by much.
Okay, so we'll let this dry, and then you're ready to go.
You'll be ready to go.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Mark.
You're welcome.
We'll be right back with Sherry Serafini.